Hello, children. We've come back to another new session, and this lesson is again from your Moments book, and this is lesson number 5, The Happy Prince. See, this is a story about a prince. Who do you call a prince first? Tell me. A prince is a king, a son of a king, you can say. So, this king, when he was alive, he was very happy. But after his death, his statue was a very big statue and it was erected on a pedestal. Pedestal is a stand, and on that stand, a statue of his was kept. From there, it was in the center of the city, and from there he could view the whole entire city. Only then, at this time, he saw the miseries or the sufferings of the people. He saw the poor, the hungry, the starving people, the homeless. So this made him very sad. These miseries of the people made him very sad. Now we are going to see what he did. He was just a beautiful statue standing right on top in the center of the city. And he was, covered with gold. He had sapphires for eyes. Sapphires are these precious stones, you can say. And a ruby in his sword. Sword is that knife he has, the kings have, right? So he had a ruby in his sword. And what he did was he wanted to part with all the gold. Part means he wanted to give all what he had. And let's see how he parted with it and why he parted. Okay, why he gave away and how he gave away is all the story about, and to whom he has given all this to. So are you ready? It's a nice story. So I want you all to listen and understand the lesson. This lesson is written by Oscar Wilde. Now I am going to give you the summary of the lesson first, and then we will go on with the reading of the chapter and explanation of the hard words also. Shall we? Once in a town there lived a prince. He was called a very happy prince because he had been happy all his life. And one day he died. After his death, his statue was erected on a tall pedestal in the middle of the town. So his statue, they had made his statue and they had kept his statue on a tall pedestal. Pedestal is a platform, you can say, a stand. So on that, his statue was kept right in the middle of the town. This statue, was covered with gold. It had precious stones for its eyes, and those precious stones were sapphire stones. Sapphire stones are this bright blue color precious stones, and those stones were embedded. Embedded means was kept for his eyes. And there was a ruby stone also, which was fitted into the handle of his sword. It was there in the handle on his sword hilt, it was kept. And from there he could see the city, the whole city, the entire city he could see. Only then he realizes that the people who lived in that city lived in poverty and misery. They were all suffering. So this sight of the people suffering, it made the prince very sad. but he was helpless. That's because he was kept on a platform. He was stuck or fitted to a pedestal. He could only weep and see the difficulties or the plight of his people, but he could not help them in any ways. One day, what happened? There was a bird, and that bird was a swallow bird. That bird was flying through the city, and it was going to Egypt to meet its friends. You know, these birds migrate from one place to another. From colder areas, it goes to hotter areas. So it was on its way to Egypt. On its way, what happened? It took shelter for that night. For that night, it wanted to stay and take shelter. So it took shelter at the feet of the statue of the prince. It found the statue, and at that statue's feet, it took rest. As it was lying down, it could realize that the statue was weeping. So it immediately inquired as to what happened. Why is the statue weeping? So the prince, he told, it is all because of the sufferings of the people. I am very sad, but now I am not able to help them. I am helpless. So the prince requested the bird to help, or he wanted the bird to become the messenger. First, in the beginning, the bird refused actually. But then later, the bird agreed to help him. So what he did was, the first thing, he asked the bird to take the ruby stone out of the sword. There was a ruby stone, it's another precious stone that was actually gilded on the sword. So he asked the swallow bird to take that ruby and to give it or deliver it to a poor seamstress. Seamstress, you can see a seamstress as a lady tailor also. So seamstress. She was in pain, she was in misery, she had a lot of problems. She was very poor. So he wanted to deliver that ruby to her. So this swallow bird, it took the ruby and gave it to the seamstress. The next morning, it said goodbye to the statue and it wanted to leave. But the statue of the prince convinced the bird to stay back for one more day. And that day, the bird was asked to remove or to pluck the sapphire stone. I told you, the sapphire stone was embedded for the eyes of the statue. So he asked the swallow bird to pluck the sapphire stone from one of the statue's eyes and give it to a young playwright. He could see a playwright who was suffering. Playwright is a person who writes plays or dramas. So he wanted the bird to deliver this one sapphire stone to the playwright. And on the third day, the bird was asked to pull or to pluck the next sapphire stone and give it to a poor match girl. This girl was very poor. She was selling matches. So maybe she has lost it. So this sapphire stone was asked to give to that match girl. So day by day, this swallow bird became a messenger and it started to help the people. By this time, the weather also became very cold, and the bird also gradually got attached to the statue. It became very close to the statue, to the prince. And the bird itself did not want to leave the statue because both the eyes of the statue was taken away, right? So the statue became blind. So the bird did not want to leave him. And what the happy prince did was he asked the bird to go around the city and inform him the condition of the people living there. So the bird went around. It saw that the rich were making merry. The rich were very happy as they were. But the poor who lived, they were very much in pain and they were suffering very badly. So what the prince did was, he had no more precious stones to help those people. So what he did, he ordered the bird to remove the gold leaf that was on his body. His body was made up of gold leaves, right? So everything was gold. What he did was, he asked the bird to pluck or to take the gold leaf one by one and distribute among the people who were in need of money. So gradually what happened? The statue of the prince lost its covering, that gold covering, and it became dull and grey, right? Inside it would have been made of cement, and on top all those decoration gold was kept. But now what happened? One by one, the leaf as it was taken, it became dull and grey. And what happened? The people who received the gold leaf, those people they were all poor people, they were very happy because they could get their food every day, right? So the swallow bird was now, as days went, the swallow bird was unable to bear the cold. These birds cannot live in cold region, right? So it started to get colder and colder. Now it was nearing its death. It helped the statue so much, and now it was nearing death. So what it did was, it informed the statue that it's going to die. The statue was also, the happy prince was also very much attached to the bird. So what he did was, he asked the bird to kiss him on his lips. And what the bird did, it kissed the prince and it died at the feet of the statue. Suddenly, once the bird died, there was a strange sound that came out of the statue. That was the breaking of the heart. So once the bird died, the prince's heart also broke. And that heart was made up of lead. Lead is that pencil lead, that lead it was made up of. What happened was, because it was very affectionate to the prince, both loved each other so much. Now what happened to the statue? The statue looked very ugly. Statue had nothing on it. So what the people there, the heads of that town, the mayor of that town, what he did, he wanted to destroy that statue. So that statue was melted in the furnace. Furnace is fire. But the heart did not melt, so that heart was thrown into the garbage. Finally, what happened? God ordered one of his angels, God ordered to bring him two most precious things in the city. And he told one of his angels. These angels came down, and the angel it took two things. One is the heart, the leaden heart of the happy prince, and the dead bird. God was very happy. He said, "You have chosen the right things, and these are very precious." And the bird and the prince were kept in his garden of paradise. Paradise means heaven. This little bird sang there in heaven forever and ever, and also the happy prince praised God forever. So these were the two precious things the angels could see on the earth. So this is what is the lessons. So this is the summary of the lesson. Now I'm going to read paragraph by paragraph, and I will be giving you the hard words and its meanings. Now turn with me to page number 28, The Happy Prince. High above the city on a tall column stood the statue of the happy prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. One night, there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt too. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city.
Where shall I put up? I hope the town has made preparations.
Then he saw the statue on the tall column.
I will put up there. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air.
So he alighted just between the feet of the happy prince.
I have a golden bedroom,
he said softly to himself as he looked around, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him.
What a curious thing! There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining.
Then another drop fell.
What is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off? I must look for a good chimney pot.
And he determined to fly away. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell. And he looked up and saw. What did he see? The eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity.
Who are you?
I am the happy prince.
Why are you weeping then? You have quite drenched me.
When I was alive and had a human heart, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. So I lived and so I died, and now I am dead. They have set me up high here that I can see the ugliness and all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep.
What? Is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remarks. Far away, continued the statue in a low musical voice.
Far away in a little street, there is a house, a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it, I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is a seamstress. She is embroidering flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the Queen's maids of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water. So he is crying, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal, and I cannot move."
I am waited for in Egypt. My friends are flying up and down the Nile and talking to the large lotus flowers. Soon they will go to sleep.
The prince asked the swallow to stay with him for one night and be his messenger.
The boy is so thirsty, and the mother so sad.
I don't think I like boys. I want to go to Egypt.
But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry.
It is very cold here.
But he agreed to stay with him for one night and be his messenger.
"Thank you, little swallow."
The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak over the roofs of the town. He passed by the cathedral tower, where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. "I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball," she said. "I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so lazy." He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the masts of the ships. At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired. In he hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. "How cool I feel," said the boy. "I must be getting better." And he sank into a delicious slumber. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done.
It is curious, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold.
That is because you have done a good action.
And the little swallow began to think, and then fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath.
Tonight I go to Egypt,
said the swallow, and he was in high spirits at the prospect. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on top of the steeple. When the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince.
"Have you any commissions for Egypt? I am just starting."
"Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you stay with me one night longer?"
"I am waited for in Egypt."
Now let's see to the hard words and its meanings, children. I want you to note down the hard words and its meanings. Just underline it and write the meanings. A few are given, but the others should be written down. See the first line, column. Column is a pillar. And then comes gilded. Gilded is covered thinly with gold leaf or gold paint. That is gilded. Okay. And then comes sapphires. Sapphires are bright blue, precious stones. And then ruby is also another stone which is dark red in color. Next is hilt. Hilt is handle of a weapon or a tool. The handle of the weapon or a tool. Just come down. See, alighted. Alighted is come down. Alighted is come down. Now come to page number 29. 29, the first paragraph, second line. It is curious. Curious means strange. And then come to the next paragraph. Determined. Determined means to decide. Next paragraph. And then the next paragraph. See, drenched. Drenched means what? Make fully wet or extremely wet. Now come to the next paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th line. Ugliness. Ugliness means very unattractive. Not very nice to see. Misery. Misery means suffering. Come down to the next paragraph. Remarks. Remarks means to comment. Remarks is to comment. Now come down to the next paragraph, the last paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4th line you see. Coarse. Coarse red hands. Coarse means not smooth, not soft. Because she's a seamstress. Actually she's a tailor. And she's been pricked by the needle. And what is she doing? She is actually making a lovely frock, a gown for the queen's maids of honor. For the queen, she is making a beautiful dress. Okay. And then comes seamstress means you can write a female tailor or a lady tailor. Then come down to the last line, that is pedestal. Pedestal means it's a platform. Now turn to page number 30. Leave the first, second, third, fourth, fifth paragraph you come to. See the fifth paragraph, sixth paragraph, I'm sorry. See, can you see cathedral tower? Cathedral is a church. Cathedral means church. You know who the angels are. They are good heavenly spirits, isn't it? Then come to the next para and then the next para again. Next para it is masts. Masts means masts of the ships. A tall pole of ship. The same paragraph, just come down. Thimble, woman's thimble. Thimble means, there is a cap. Tailors will have that cap for their finger to protect them from pricking. The needle will prick them, right? To protect that poking, they use that thimble. That is the cap. It's a cap like worn on their fingers. And then there is a boy who's asleep over there. The seamstress is actually very tired of making that gown, that frock, and her son is actually very sick. He's got a very high fever. And this swallow, it goes and it fans the boy's forehead. He feels very nice and he goes to sleep, and he's asking for what? He's asking for oranges, but that lady is not able, she cannot afford, she was not able to buy oranges for him, but instead she was just giving him water. Now what happened? The swallow kept this ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble and it flew away. Okay, so this is what is the first help done by whom? Done by the prince through the swallow bird. Let's see what.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. Garret means small roof at the top of a room. He is leaning over a desk covered with papers, and in the glass by his side, there is a bunch of withered violets. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate. Pomegranate is a fruit. And he has large and dreamy eyes. He's trying to finish a play for the director of the theater, but he is too cold to write any more. There is no fire in the grate. Grate means fireplace. And hunger has made him faint.
I will wait with you one night longer,
Said the swallow, who really had a good heart. He asked if he could take another ruby to the young playwright.
Alas, I have no ruby now. My eyes are all that I have left. They are made of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago.
He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of them and take it to the playwright.
He will sell it to the jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play.
dear prince. I cannot do that.
And he began to weep.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, do as I command you.
So the swallow plucked out the prince's eyes and flew away to the young man's garret. It was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. Through this he darted. Darted means rushed. Darted means rushed, and came into the room. The young man had his head buried in his hands, so he did not hear the flutter of the bird's wings. Flutter means to move the wings up and down. And when he looked up, he found the beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violets. Withered violets are, the withered means like faded away, violets are a flower. Withered violets. I am beginning to be appreciated. This is from some great admirer. Admirer means a fan. Now I can finish my play. And he looked quite happy. The next day, the swallow flew down to the harbor. Harbor is a port where the ships are kept. He sat on the mast of a large vessel and watched the sailors working.
I am going to Egypt.
But nobody minded, and when the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince.
I have come to bid you goodbye.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me one night longer?
It is winter, and the snow will soon be here. In Egypt, the sun is warm on the green palm trees, and the crocodiles lie in the mud and look lazily about them.
Here it is about a playwright. I told you, playwright is the one who writes the plays or dramas, So he is given one sapphire, a precious stone. He feels very happy because he can buy firewood and continue his play. So let's continue and see who is the next person to be helped.
In the square below, there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter and they are all spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money, and she is crying. She has no shoes or stockings. Stockings means socks. And her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her, and her father will not beat her.
I will stay with you one night longer, but I cannot pluck out your eye. You would be quite blind then.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, do as I command you.
So he plucked out the prince's other eye and darted. Darted means rushed down with it. He swooped past the match girl. Swooped means to move very quickly. And slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. What a lovely bit of glass, cried the little girl. And she ran home laughing. Then the swallow came back to the prince.
You are blind now, so I will stay with you always.
No, little swallow, you must go away to Egypt.
No, I will stay with you always.
And he slept at the prince's feet. All the next day he sat on the prince's shoulder and told him stories of what he had seen in strange lands.
Dear little swallow, you tell me of marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of men and women. There is no mystery so great as misery. Mystery means secret. Misery means sadness, suffering. Fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there.
So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses. Merry means being very happy, enjoying. While the beggars were sitting at the gates, he flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children. Starving means hungry children, looking out listlessly at the black streets. Under the archway of a bridge, two little boys were lying in each other's arms to try and keep themselves warm. How hungry we are, they said. You must not lie here, shouted the watchman, and they wandered out into the rain. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen.
I am covered with fine gold. You must take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to the poor. The living always think that gold can make them happy.
Leaf after leaf of the fine gold, the swallow picked off, till the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier. Rosier means very happy. The cheeks grew very pink, and they laughed and played in the street. We have bread now, they cried. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. The streets looked as if they were made of silver. Everybody went about in furs, and the little boys wore scarlet. Scarlet is dark red caps. They all wore sweaters because it was very cold, and skated on the ice. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. Crumbs means pieces of bread. But as at last he knew that he was going to die, he had just enough strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more.
Goodbye, dear prince. Will you let me kiss your hand?
I am glad that you are going to Egypt at last, little swallow. You have stayed too long here, but you must kiss me on the lips, for I love you.
It is not to Egypt that I am going. I am going to the house of death. Death is the brother of sleep, is he not?
And he kissed the happy prince on the lips and fell dead at his feet. At that moment, a curious crack means to break, sounded inside the statue, as if something had broken. The fact is that the leaden heart had snapped means broke, right in two. It certainly was a dreadfully hard frost. Dreadfully, very badly. Frost means it's a white powdered layer of ice. Early the next morning, the mayor is the head of the municipal, was walking in the square. Square means that street below, in company with the town councillors. So 2 to 3 people were walking there. As they passed the column, he looked up at the statue. Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks, he said. Shabby means ugly. How shabby indeed, cried the 2 councillors, who always agreed with the mayor, and they went up to look at it. The ruby has fallen out of his sword, his eyes are gone, and he is golden no longer, said the mayor. In fact, he is little better than a beggar. Little better than a beggar, said the 2 councillors. And here is actually a dead bird at his feet, continued the mayor. We must really issue a proclamation. Proclamation means an official announcement that birds are not to be allowed to die here. And the town clerk is official in charge of maintaining the records. And the town clerk made a note of the suggestion. So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince. As he is no longer beautiful, he is no longer useful, said the art professor at the university. Then they melted the statue in a furnace. Furnace means fire. What a strange thing, said the overseer of the workmen at the foundry. Foundry is a place where metal is melted. And this broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. It did not melt in the furnace, in the fire. We must throw it away. So they threw it on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. Bring me the 2 most precious things in the city, said God to one of his angels. And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird. You have rightly chosen, said God. For in my garden of paradise, this little bird shall sing forevermore, and in my city of gold, the happy prince shall praise me. I think you understood the lesson. And it has been written by Oscar Wilde. So the two precious things are the heart of the prince and the little bird. The hard words are also given. I hope you understood the lesson. Thank you very much, children.